Let's talk more about it. Our next guest, of course, Rays color analyst, former MLB pitcher, and he was also on the Peacock and NBCSN broadcast yesterday alongside our buddy Brian Roberts. He is Mr. Brian Anderson, and he is with us now here on GCR. Brian, it's Glenn back in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up with you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Absolutely. No problem. This has not been the greatest series for the Rays,
right.
Obviously coming off that road trip where they went 9-0, but I'll tell you what, Baltimore is playing a scrappy brand of baseball. And they've got themselves right back into a spot right now.
Yeah, I was going to say the Rays could afford it. The Orioles couldn't afford anything other than this. Brian, I ask you to look at our team. What do you make of this? Because I just said, I have no idea. Nothing the Orioles have done all year has been predictive. As you know, the Orioles swept the Rays earlier this year in Baltimore, and it didn't mean anything long term for them as their ability to sustain it. I will acknowledge, if you are getting this version of Gunnar Henderson, I do think that could prove to be a complete game changer and something that could make this sustainable for the Orioles.
Well, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you what, he could be having a better series than he's actually had because of how many balls that he has hit hard that the Rays have been able to make, great plays on. He had 2 extra base hits taken away from him in yesterday's game alone. So, I mean, he really is swinging the bat well, but, it's really not a surprise either because it's pretty interesting coming into this series. I don't know where he's at right now, but coming into this series, only Mike Trout had a higher OPS against Rays pitching than Gunnar Henderson. He's completely owned this organization, which is really interesting because, Rays year in and year out run out some pretty impressive pitching staffs, but Gunnar Henderson has had a ton of success against them. So I don't know any other thing. It's funny because he had the 4-hit game in game 1. And I was like, his batting average looked low to me, obviously. And so I went back before he came into town. And over the previous 20 games, he was hitting 157. 157. He had 11 total hits. And then he gets here. And in game 1, he goes 4 for 4 with a homer, drives in a couple of runs. And so you're like, well, that's what he does to Rays pitching. So I don't know what it is about that, but he is swinging the bat very well. And you're right. If he can continue to do that, Pete Alonso is just red hot right now. And you're getting some big hits from Jackson Holliday. So you're getting different guys in the lineup that are contributing. And if that can continue, then I was hearing what you were saying previously about there's going to be a team that breaks through. Well, maybe it's Baltimore. Maybe it's Baltimore because you're right. There are 6 or 7 teams within a game and a half of each other for that final wild card spot. And so it's 500 ball. You're 100% correct. That's not going to cut it. Someone's going to have to take off. And maybe it's them.
What do you I brought this up because oddly for a month, as you referenced what the Orioles were doing coming in, for about a month, the Orioles starting pitching was carrying them. And then, the last kind of time through, it hasn't been as dominant, but still solid, right? Trevor Rogers was solid yesterday, and Kyle Bradish was solid, put a lot of guys on base, but he was certainly solid. Is there enough there that if they can get the offense going, to your point, they can be that team that comes through out of this mess and solidifies themselves as being worthy of going in the playoffs?
I do believe that. I actually do because, you got Chris Bassett back. And while he's not going to overwhelm anybody with velocity and lighten up, radar guns, he is a veteran who knows how to pitch, who knows how to work himself around a lineup. And, maybe this end of the year being in a playoff race, gets him rejuvenated, gets him going. That's entirely possible. Kyle Bradish, I know how good that guy can be. You guys have seen him. He's a guy that can be a really, top front end, starter. And same thing with Rogers. It was interesting going into yesterday's game and looking at his year, his first 10 starts, he had a 6.8 ERA. In his last 12, he had a 2.4. And then threw a good game yesterday. So, and I know that we were talking with Craig Alvarez, before the game, and he really liked where Trevor Rogers was. And he said he's in good rhythm. And when he's in good rhythm, he's able to command the fastball. And when he's able to command the fastball, then all of his secondary pitches work off of that. So, listen, I think that there is enough there. And I think that this group, quite frankly, because of what went on at the trade deadline, I think that this group is playing with the chip on their shoulder. I think that they're like, really? That's what you think?
Mm-hmm.
We can do this. We can do this. And I think that there is a certain edge that clubhouse may have just because of that.
He is Brian Anderson, World Series champion, Rays color analyst, and of course was working the game yesterday for NBCSN. He's with us here on GCR before the Orioles and Rays plays Game 4. I want to get your sense on two other things related to the Orioles, and I want to talk to you about the Rays, Brian. The first being, Griffin and I were just talking about this. I know you don't know this clubhouse the way you know the Rays clubhouse, but those scenes yesterday, and I know that there will be people that will clutch their pearls about, crotch grabs and things like that. But what you just alluded to, there's maybe kind of us against the world mentality. It felt like maybe that was coming out a little bit in this group yesterday. And Griffin and I were just having this conversation where I don't want to oversell Yohel Pozo because I get it. He's probably not really an MLB caliber catcher. But, man, when you've got a guy that seems to be vibing like this, and they acquired Carlos Narvaez, they won him, but Samuel Basallo's coming back. It's really tough for me. It feels like almost I don't want to mess with this in the moment because it seems like there might be something there that these guys are feeding off of. And, the guys that Buck Showalter would tell me about the role of the backup catcher a lot over years and how important it is. There's a part of me that's like, I don't know, man. I don't know that you can send this cat down right now because it just feels like maybe he's playing a role that goes beyond just getting behind the plate every fourth or fifth day.
Well, certainly. I think that I'd love to know the story behind that yesterday because that was deliberate. That was planned. So I have no idea what that story is. I got Brian Roberts on it. Hopefully he can find out for me and we can enjoy a laugh about it. But yeah, that was something along the lines of what I was kind of alluding to, that this team is, you get the feeling that they are playing obviously together, but they are playing with a purpose and they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. And, maybe he's a guy that helps bring that because again, yesterday that was interesting to say the least, but it seemed like everybody got a kick out of it in that dugout.
It definitely seemed like it was galvanizing for whatever reason. I'm sure there's somebody within the organization who's like, can we pick something else? Can we do something besides this?
Right.
Brian, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about this group, you saw them on both Friday and Saturday night. Have the Orioles found something in Cam Sanders? I mean, he's a journeyman that they're throwing in there. I mean, we all had the same feeling on Friday night. Like, oh, of course, this is the Rays we're talking about. But he got out of it, and then obviously what he did in the 10th inning. Is it possible the Orioles have found something?
That's entirely possible. I've seen that I don't know how many times with the Rays, where the Rays will either bring a pitcher in an unheralded trade, or they'll pick him up off the waiver wire, and the next thing you know, he's getting huge outs for the team, late in important games. So that's entirely possible. And I know that Craig Albanez, again, yesterday when we were talking to him, he mentioned, he's like, he was on the waiver wire. He goes, and we pick him up, and he said, and I'm putting him into some tough spots, and boy, he's coming through and making some big pitches. And he's got an interesting little arm slot. He kind of flings the ball off to the side and can run it up there with some of that upshoot type action. And there's no reason to believe that if Baltimore's not giving him, the right kind of information, you saw it the last couple of days, getting some big outs in some big spots. And so I've seen it over and over and over again here in Tampa. And there's no reason to believe that it couldn't be happening right now in Baltimore too.
Brian, aside from the last 3 days, obviously it's been a magical season in Tampa. How do they keep doing this? I think it's more uncomfortable for us this year because it feels like we're getting shot by our own gun with, Cedric Mullins and Jorge Mateo and now Tyler Wells joining into the mix as well. But how do they keep figuring it? Brian Baker, God, how do they keep figuring out ways to keep this train rolling and continue to be as good as they are year in and year out, despite obviously not having the resources of the LA Dodgers or the New York Yankees?
I think that they do a masterful job of identifying talent, characteristics of talent, skill sets, strengths of a player. I think they do a masterful job of doing that and then being able to build a team with that knowledge. And it was really interesting with this team right here. I think the Rays have realized unless you have a homegrown slugger, we don't have the money right now to go out and pay for one. We can't go get the top, we can't go spend the money to get a Kyle Tucker if he was going to be the high-end guy on the market last offseason, whoever it may be. So either you develop your own, which is not really easy to do. They have one in Junior Caminero, of course, but you either develop your own or you need to find a different kind of offensive identity.
Yep.
And that's what they did. And so they went out and they prioritized getting guys and bringing them in that can run the bases aggressively, can steal bags, can get bunts down, prioritize, putting the ball in play, try to limit strikeouts, do it all the little things. And that became their offensive identity. Now, they sit at 10th or 11th in the American League in home runs, but they're right at the top of the leaderboard since the beginning of July. So that part of their game is starting to trend upwards, which, they're thrilled with. But more than that, they've got a lot of other ways that they can beat you. And they're a team that doesn't wait until it's late in the game and the game is close to start moving base runners and butting guys over. They'll do that in the first inning. They'll do that in the second inning. They make themselves very difficult to defend. And we see mistakes made all the time by visiting teams or when we're on the road. They put a lot of pressure on a pitcher and the defense. And we see mistakes made all of the time because they're seeing a brand of baseball that they don't see a lot of. And so they make mistakes. They throw the ball to the wrong base. They hold the ball. They bobble the ball because the Rays have a ton of speed, especially when you think about, Chandler Simpson. So I think that they just do a great job of identifying, earmarking players and, hey, we really like what you do with this. And they bring them in and, they shore up the weaknesses. They make the strengths a little bit better. And all of a sudden the guy becomes a guy. And then you got a guy like Brian Baker, who, like you were just talking about, he's leading, at least a couple of days ago, he was leading the league in saves and had saved like his last 23 for his last 23. He's been absolutely, dynamic at the back end of that pen. So they just have a great behind the scenes group that knows how to put a team together.
Do they have
and they do it on the shoestring budget.
Do they have enough to win the World Series, Brian?
You know what? It's really funny. Coming into this series, I had, been on a show and said that I believe that this Rays team absolutely could win a World Series. And from seeing what has been around the league, you say that they're the most well-rounded team, all-around team in the American League, at least. You can nitpick on certain parts. You could say, well, the Yankees top-end starters maybe are better than the Rays top-end stars. Maybe you can make that argument. But then I can point to other parts of the team where the Rays are much deeper and much stronger. So I think that they absolutely have a chance. But, they obviously have to get out of this malaise that they've been in since they've come back home, which nobody saw coming, going 9-0 on a West Coast road trip and then coming home and having a day off to kind of decompress. You just wonder, if the attention to detail has been there, because Baltimore, who was not having that great of a road trip, has rolled right into Tropicana Field, where, by the way, the Rays have the best home record in Major League Baseball, and it's not that close. And Baltimore rolls right in and has completely handled them, the first three games, including obviously the blowout yesterday.
In the words of the late John Sterling, that's baseball, Susan. You just don't know. There's no way to predict when these things are going to happen. Brian Anderson, it was a lot of fun with you and B-Rob on the call yesterday. I'm sure you would have been having more fun if the score had looked a different way, but I still appreciate you taking the time for us. Look forward to chatting more. Thanks so much for hopping on with us this morning.
Yeah, no, that yesterday was a blast. Brian Roberts, what a great dude. It was awesome getting to know him, or to getting a chance to talk to him the couple days leading in and working with him yesterday. He's a great guy and does a great job. So, it was a lot of fun. And like you said, that's baseball. Hey, my days of taking losses home with me are long gone.
I appreciate that. Yeah, right. You can't do anything about it anymore.
That's right. That's right. I try to do my best to bring it to the viewer, give them a peek behind the curtain. But when that game's over, I go home.
Hey, always appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hopping on with us.
All right. Take care.
Brian Anderson down in Tampa, of course, former World Series winning pitcher with the Diamondbacks, now Rays color analyst.